Every day, the trains at the Blue Mountain Quarry work really hard transporting the slate from deep inside the quarry for the larger engines to take away to the docks. Thomas loved collecting the slate trucks. He felt he had a very important job to do and always chuffed along the track with a big smile on his face. One day, the Thing Controller pulled up in his car to talk to Thomas. "Well done, Thomas," he said. "You work so hard on the railway pulling all those trucks. You are one of the hardest working engines on the railway." Thomas couldn't believe his ears. "The hardest working engine? Oh, yes I am, and I'm going to tell the other engines when we're back in our engine shed tonight." Thomas puffed away with the biggest smile on his face. He felt so proud he thought his boiler would burst. That evening at the engine sheds, when all the engines were tucked up ready for the night, Thomas mentioned his conversation with the Thing Controller. "Yes, and the Thing Controller said I'm the hardest working engine on Sodor," boasted Thomas. The other engines were quite cross with Thomas. "Why are you the hardest working engine?" exclaimed Gordon. "I've travelled 3 times around Sodor taking all my passengers to all the different stations. I haven't stopped except for a drink of water. And I had to work all day with Farmer McColl transporting the animals, and my wheels are quite worn out," said James. "I'm sure that I work the hardest." Thomas felt very annoyed. "I do work the hardest, and I will show that I can do the work of 2 engines. He thought very hard how he could prove to the others that this was the case, and then suddenly he came up with a plan. "If I pull twice as many trucks full of slate from the quarry tomorrow, then they will have to say that I work the hardest." So Thomas went to sleep, dreaming of his plan and how the engines would have to say that he was the hardest working engine. The next day, Thomas woke up bright and breezy, excited about his plan. He chuffed very happily along the branch line, over the bridges, and then through the tunnel on his way to the quarry. He backed up to the trucks and asked his driver to couple all the trucks to him. His driver got out and exclaimed, "Thomas, I don't think that we can pull all these trucks." "Yes we can," peeped Thomas. "Couple them up and I'll show you." And so off they went on their journey. But Thomas had forgotten how steep the rail out of the quarry was, and very soon he started struggling. His wheels started spinning, and he was struggling to pull the trucks behind him. He kept moving, but his wheels kept spinning. But he was getting closer to the top of the hill. But then when he got to the top, the coupling between him and the first truck started stretching and then broke and then crashed at the bottom. "Oh no!" shouted Thomas, and he backed down the hill to find the trucks on their side. His driver called for help and tried to clean the dust off his face. Very soon Mavis arrived with her breakdown crane. "Oh dear, Thomas, you have got yourself into a pickle." And she set to work getting the trucks back on the rail with their cargoes of slate. The truck with a broken coupling had to be taken away for repair. At that moment Percy arrived and asked Thomas if he would like some help. "Oh, thank you, Percy. I don't think I can manage them all by myself," said Thomas quietly. The 2 engines then pulled away on their journey to the docks together. Later that evening, Thomas and Percy returned to the sheds. Thomas had been very quiet, but then said sadly to the other engines, "I'm sorry I boasted about being the hardest working engine." "Never mind, Thomas," said James. "None of us can do all the work on our own, but together we make a really useful team." Thomas smiled. He had the best friends in the world, and he made a note never to boast again.